What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Jeameave.
And your boy Matt.
And today, I think it would be a disservice if I didn't start this video by saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. I want to reiterate that. I want to say it for the people in the back, and I want to say it slowly. If you have an issue or any sort of problem where you are somehow offended by the statement of Black Lives Matter, I mean this in the most disrespectful way possible. Fuck you and anyone else that associates with you with that same exact frame of thought, because Black Lives Matter does not mean that black lives are supposed to mean more than other ethnicities or other lives. It simply means that we are asking for and we need the satisfaction of knowing that our skin color does not automatically mean that we are to be treated differently or a target or anything of that nature. Black Lives Matter simply means that we are asking to be treated equally and fairly as anyone else on this earth. We are all humans at the end of the day. When you say the phrase, all lives matter, no shit, all lives do matter. However, in doing so, you also diminish Black Lives Matter, because at the end of the day, all lives cannot matter until black lives start to matter. That is the main reason why we're doing this. This is the main reason why we attended the protest at Pan Pacific Park on Saturday. This is the main reason why we're here to tell you what it was like to be on the front lines and witness extreme police brutality upon peaceful protesters that we were all a part of. On Saturday, my brother and I, again, as aforementioned, attended the Pan Pacific Park at the Grove that extended from Beverly and Fairfax all the way to Santa Monica Boulevard, through West Hollywood, all the way through Beverly Hills, made a circle essentially, came back. Now, during that entire time frame, from the beginning, it was completely peaceful. Any traffic that we came across, people delegated and directed them out of the way of the people that were marching with us. We were probably anywhere between the range of 700 to 1,000 strong within our marching group. There was no looting, there was no rioting of any nature, and I want people to understand that there's three significant differences here. There's a difference between looting, there's a difference between rioting, and there's a difference between protesting / marching. When you cannot clump all three of those things together. There are people that attend these protests with their own narrative and their own prerogative. Do not clump people that are being peaceful and those that have come there with a purpose to support racial injustice as well as cop complacency within this country with everyone else. We understand that there are people and opportunists that take this time to go and loot stores. My brother and I do not condone looting. Let's make that clear. Again, looting is not something to be clumped together with the entire movement. Just like how you guys want to say that a few bad cops or whatever don't speak for everyone else, for every other cop, don't take the fact that there are people and opportunists and looters within this movement and clump them all together with us, because that is not the case. You guys always want to argue that there's no such thing as every cop is a bad cop. Well, I implore you to understand that just because we're peacefully protesting and marching for the injustice that we see and feel within every fiber of our soul as black men in this country, I need you to just understand that there are those that go there with the intention of inciting violence and increasing the probability of making things turn into chaos. There is a fine line between protesting and rioting in the sense that you are objectively destroying, not subjectively, objectively destroying property to bring cause and awareness to our movement. And that being like, sort of police property, Capitol State buildings, things of that nature. I personally agree with that, because when we protest peacefully, you guys want to say, don't do it that way, or don't do it that way, or do it this way. But then again, when I do see people say, oh, you can't do it that way, I ask you this then, how do we go about doing it? Because when we do it peacefully, it falls on deaf ears. Our tears are not acknowledged. We are not shown change. Anytime we do things in a manner that you can ignore, it fits your narrative and it doesn't force you to take notice. What is going on right now is a culmination of so many generations, so many decades, so many centuries of injustice from not just black people, but every other person of color within this country. And it just so happens that, unfortunately, black men, black women, our brothers and sisters, our fathers, mothers, sisters, daughters, nieces, uncles, whatever, what have you. Why are we so unjustly killed through these streets? It is not a matter of black on black violence. It is a completely separate video. It is not a matter of just police brutality. It is not a matter of just people of black descent being targeted. It is a humanity issue. We are all humans. If you can look at that video or look at what's going on and your first thought is to say, ooh, the destruction of property isn't right, and you're bothered by that, but you're not bothered by the fact that three officers kneeled on this man, George Floyd, say his name, rest in peace. 3 of them. It wasn't just Derek Chauvin that kneed and felt and pressed his entire body weight onto the body of George Floyd. It was 3. Derek Chauvin, Thomas K. Lane, J. Alexander Kung. Those are the 3 racist pieces of shit that made their entire body pressed onto him. Tu Tao was the officer that stood by and prevented people, the citizens that were watching, prevented people from helping George Floyd. Now, I understand that it's extremely easy to say, hindsight is 20/20, look at that video and say if you were there that you would have jumped in. That's all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, we all want to live, just as George Floyd did. When he screamed out in pain that everything hurts, that he can't breathe, we all want to live. But you also have to understand too, that Tu Tao, the officer that stopped and impeded people from helping, he was willing to shoot people. If he can sit there and look at this man dying, asking for breath, and stand there and not bat an eye, and couldn't sit there and say, look, yo, this is wrong. What does that tell you? He wouldn't give a flying fuck about anyone else that would have attempted to prevent what was happening. Think about that for a moment. He stood there and watched this man die when he had every right and every possibility. Instead of being a yes man, instead of being a bootlicking piece of shit, he stood there, understood, acknowledged what was going on, and let it happen. Now, as of today, as of recording this, Derek Chauvin's charge was upgraded from 3rd degree / manslaughter to 2nd degree, and other charges are now being pending to the other 3 officers, J. Alexander Kung, Thomas K. Lane, and Tu Tao. I want to reiterate again, I want you to remember those names because it is important, because these are the faces of what will eventually either lead to extreme change within this country, or, again, because again, like I said, we're still in initial stages, charges is not the end. We need convictions. We need convictions of murder. We need to understand that these people will be locked under the jail, that they will never be able to have freedom again, because that is what is deserved in this case. Because we are tired. We are tired of having to go about knowing that we are judged differently based purely on the fact of how we look. Not on how our personality is, but based purely on how we look. That is an extreme issue. I can never forget one time, my brother and I, we were driving through Beverly Hills, going the speed limit with our windows down, a beautiful day just like this. And Tony, what happened exactly?
Oh man, we were just being, 2 young African American males, enjoying the neighborhood, just like everybody else.
In Beverly Hills?
Bumping music, doing what we do best, enjoying life.
Not even that loud, mind you.
Nah, we wasn't blasting, we wasn't being obnoxious or, a nuisance to society is how, the public would like to label us. We were just, living life. And when I tell you, my brother pulled up on, must have been 2 cop cars, 3 cop cars?
It was 3 cop cars. I remember it was 6 cops. It was 2 cops in the front of all 3 of those vehicles. 2 times 3 is 6, obviously. And when I tell you, not a word of lie, as we drove past, and it just so happened that I happened to glance in their direction because they're going the opposite direction of us. We were going north, they were going south. When I tell you, all 6 of those cops, who are all white by the way, gave us the most egregious, disgusting look of like, what are you doing here? Like, you don't belong here. And if we didn't have somewhere to go, we would have immediately turned around and potentially bothered you for no reason. That was the impression that I personally had.
Crazy, we was just trying to go get some cookies now that I think about it. From Dee Dee Reed, that's the crazy thing.
We really were.
We was just trying to go mess up some cookies.
But just to know that, how can you as a public servant, someone that was sworn oath to protect and serve, to look at someone with such disgust? The fact that I can still remember their facial expressions, knowing that they looked at us like as if we were scum, like as if we didn't belong. And that's just one of many instances that we've personally experienced. We all have our stories, and we all have our differences in terms of how oppressed we've felt in certain interactions with police, as well as any other people that somehow tend to not be black, which is a problem. So now, back to the actual protest in and of itself. I will say that it was a extremely beautiful thing. It was beautiful in a vacuum. Don't get it misconstrued. It was beautiful in a vacuum in the sense that it was extremely glorious to see so many people, so many of our black brothers and sisters and allies come together in unity to march with a purpose and to understand that what has been transpiring is not okay. It is extremely wrong, and there has been a culmination of too many negative things that has erupted to cause what is now transpiring within not just this country, but in a lot of ways all around the world. Because it's come to a stand that this is 2020 and we are still having to fight issues such as this. It's completely asinine. So with that being said, as we were marching, it was extremely peaceful the entire time. People knew, people honked, people corroborated, people understood. Even those that we came into contact with traffic that we impeded and blocked, we had people directing them out of our way. We had people getting them out of their way. We didn't surround vehicles and indiscriminately beat people or cause destruction or whatever. Those that did try to do so, particularly when we got into Beverly Hills, outside the Gucci store, because they did have tone deaf stuff, we didn't really care. It was kind of like, hey, do you. But overall, for the mom and pop shops, for the smaller stuff, for the things that people know would be wrong, they were strongly admonished and scorned and told to not do so. Yes, there were people that tried to do so, but the overwhelming majority, the vast majority of people did not partake or condone acts of rioting or looting, particularly looting. That was not condoned within our group. We did so peacefully. And I want to reiterate that we did that peacefully for that whole 4.5 hour march. It was peaceful right up until the very end. Now, my brother and I, as well as the two friends that accompanied us,
Jay and Keiko, shout out to you guys. Shout out to you queens for holding it down for us too.
We all came, before we even got out of our vehicles when we first parked, we all understood that if things were to pop off, we all understood the risk, that there is a very large, real possibility that we could either be severely injured, hurt, or whatever have you. If things were to pop off, run back to the vehicle, find our own ways there. So, going back to near the very end of the protest, we were on Beverly. As soon as we hit back Fairfax, from circling around from Beverly Hills, so we're coming the opposite direction of where we first started. We reached the police scrimmage line, the right scrimmage line that was set up on Fairfax. Again, completely peaceful the entire time up until this, and I will explain why. I was maybe the second or third row away from the actual police scrimmage line from when we arrived from walking. I think at this particular moment, I was probably the first one in our group up there. And I would say this, that I don't know if it was, someone was looking out for me personally. I'm very fortunate, I am very blessed to have come out of that situation unscathed, but I also want to say that there are a lot of our brothers and sisters and allies that did not, that were injured, that were hurt, that were accosted by police and beaten indiscriminately. And I say that because as I approached, within 30 seconds or so of me arriving there, the police initiated their indiscriminate beating of everyone in front. They did not care that everyone is being peaceful. They did not care that people were exercising their First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. They did not care about human life. It was either you listen to them or you suffer the consequences. And that is exactly what we're protesting about. Just because you have a badge does not mean you can sit there and implore your will upon someone else indiscriminately and unlawfully. That it is the complete opposite of what you signed up for as a police officer. That makes absolutely no sense for you to sit there and systemically beat everyone, as well as deploy rubber bullets, tear gas canisters, smoke canisters, extreme use of force. And I say that because there were 3 people, all within arm's length, within inches of me, that were shot by rubber bullets. A woman was blasted between the area of her top lip and her nose, completely destroyed her entire face in this area. How is that okay? She was protesting peacefully. She wasn't throwing anything. She wasn't doing anything other than what would be granted by the First Amendment, expressing her right to show disgust of what this country is doing. 2 men. One was struck in the chest abdomen area. The other one was struck in the thigh. I don't know how I wasn't struck, but I am very thankful and blessed that I wasn't. And at that point in time, it was either run or get trampled, because at that point in time, from my account, it was you have to pick and choose your battles. You have to understand when it is okay to stand and fight and when it is to be able to stand and fight for another day. And I chose to try and fight for another day, and unfortunately, I, as well as everyone else that was in front of me and those behind me, did have to run. But my brother had a very similar experience, because again, we were on other sides. But I'm gonna let him tell what he witnessed and how he felt in those exact moments leading up to that.
To be honest, all leading up to that moment, like my brother said, everything was, you know, peaceful. You know, not what the media was trying to make it seem, or, you know, they were rioting or, you know, throwing stuff. I'm not gonna lie, there was an incident where we did try to stop them running to CVS, and they accomplished that mission.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Just before the CVS right there next to the Beverly Center, off of Beverly, looting did occur there. But the vast overwhelming majority of people did score and admonish and correctly try to stop people from doing so. But again, it was just a cause of the movement, in the sense that those that came there, the opportunists that came there, tried to clump that all together. Again, the overwhelming majority of people did not partake in that. It's only a select few that did and chose to do so. And the vast overwhelming majority of people, including ourselves and our group, did not partake and strongly discouraged people from doing so. But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. So at that point, it is, you got to go and know what you're there for and carry on with your mission in your heart and know what's best for you and what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. I agree 110% with my bro. As well as, you know, we were marching forward again, continuing. After everything transpired, they started shooting. You know, they just started shooting rubber bullets. At that point, I seen...
Unprovoked.
Yeah, unprovoked. You know, they're just a scare tactic. It was just a scare tactic. But me being, you know, I'm not trying to brag about my height, but I was rather the kind of almost the tallest person out of that group. So when I turned around, I'm seeing everybody flee, you know, turn back. And I don't know if it was adrenaline. I don't know if it was something spiritual. I don't know if it was, you know, whatever you guys' beliefs are, you know, the Holy Spirit, you know, Buddha, or whatever it was, stopped me in my tracks at that moment and had me turn around and look. And at that moment, I don't know who this lady is to this day. It was an African American queen. She was wearing damn near all green, but she was just standing there, and not just her, but it was also a Caucasian lady, a white lady, you know, on the other side of her. You know, she was standing her ground too. And in my head, I'm thinking, you know, I did tell my brothers, and I did tell my sister Keiko, and I did tell, you know, my uncle Jay, if things were to get out of hand, you know, get to safety. However, at that moment, like I said, anybody that knows me or knows of me, they know this is what I've been talking about, and this is what I've been, you know, telling people, and basically leading up to that point, like, this is what I'm here to do. This is my purpose, to fight for my people, speak for those that don't have a voice or can't speak. And as, like I said, going back to the story, as I turned around, I seen her. I'm like, you know, if she's that strong, if these African queens, you know, and this white, you know, amazing lady, this white queen, I would give it that I'm not gonna ever deteriorate or, you know, take away from another race. However, you know, they're both standing there, you know, standing their ground. So of course I turned around, you know, walked up, stood right by side by side with them. If you see my video on Instagram, you can see, you know, we're standing right there, front line. At the moment, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'll be a liar to sit there and tell you that I didn't have a fearful bone in my body. I did, not only for me, but for the people around me. But being on the front line, I can honestly see, and I was able to see the fear, not only in some people, my comrades' eyes, my allies' eyes, the police's eyes. You know, some of them, you could tell they didn't want to be there. You know, you could tell they were, you know, just acting off of an order.
But there are also some, like in
that's
Beverly Hills specifically.
Yeah, now I said there's some that enjoyed that. Like
that when you looked in their eyes, you could tell
they wanted
something. They wanted a reason to impose their will. You could tell that when you look in some of these cops' eyes that they just saw, it looked decadent. It looked devoid of compassion and life for another human being. It looked like as if the moment you stepped out of line, or the moment we heard word was given to them, that they would not bat an eye or give a second thought to beating the shit out of anyone that was in front of them, whether it was white, black, whatever. It didn't matter to them. That was what they were there for, and they were just waiting for something to pop off. That was what I personally felt coming from looking in the eyes of some of those police officers, especially some of those that were in Beverly Hills, when we came face to face with them. Just as how this camera is right now, arm's length distance away from me, that's how close I was to some of those police officers in Beverly Hills. When I looked in their eyes, there were some that looked, again, like my brother said, that didn't want to be there, that were there just because they had to be there and didn't want to be there. And I guess you could go as far as they understood why we were there on the other side. And there are unfortunately those of which that were looking just to be there and looking for a reason to indiscriminately beat, maim, and injure peaceful protesting.
Yeah, and some of them they did want to be there, and you know, some of them they were, like I said, as soon as I figured out they were just shooting shotgun shell blanks and the rubber bullets. Don't get me wrong, don't ever underestimate what a rubber bullet can do. I've seen what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, we've all seen firsthand what it's capable of doing. And unfortunately to that black community, I hope you're resting up well. I hope you're no longer in pain, and I wish you a speedy recovery. You took one, unfortunately, you were injured in the process, but again, we all knew the risks going out there, and we're both fortunate and blessed, again, to have come out unscathed. But again, there are many people that of which were severely injured that were partaking in this, that were doing so peacefully, and again, were unfortunately injured by police brutality.
Absolutely. To the fallen queens and kings.
So with that being said, I don't want to make this video too long, but these were just our frontline accounts, and we wanted to make sure that people knew and understand that we are safe, we are blessed, and we are fortunate. And we wanted to give you guys our first-hand accounts of what it was like to be on the front lines. It was in a vacuum, it was a beautiful thing. A very beautiful thing to see so many people come together. Regardless of ethnicity, we all marched with a purpose, we all knew what our purpose were. Outside of that vacuum, it is incredibly deepening and saddening to understand and know that in 2020, we still have to come together in this regard to be able to bring voices to the unheard, to be able to bring acknowledgement to the tears of everything that we have faced in this country, not just as our generation, but every generation before us. And I want you to understand that this country was founded upon the most extreme form of rioting. War. This country, the people, our forefathers, white forefathers, were felt oppressed by the empire of Great Britain. I want you to understand that they felt oppressed. Let me say that slowly again. They felt oppressed. Just like how we people of color, and in particular, we black people feel. We feel oppressed. I want you guys to remember that. So with that being said, I think that, anything else?
Oh, no, good. Yeah, no, we're good.
So with that being said, it's your boy Jeameave.
Your boy Mac.
And I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it added some clarity. If you are looking to join a protest, I implore you to do so. It is an amazing experience in a vacuum, but also understand that you are putting yourself at great risk. Understand that there is a possibility that you can be hurt by going to one, but also understand that what you are doing is for the betterment of humanity, and especially black people, because it is time that we are to be able to be treated fairly and justly, and not be treated negatively based purely on the way we look. We're out.